Yo guys, I am so excited about my new Ducati Multistrada Enduro 1260. This is going to be my legend tripping machine. But I am not here to talk about motorcycles today. Today I'm here to talk about the 5 scariest urban legends that are mostly true. Let's check it out. My name is Rikki Rockett. I am the drummer for Poison, but on my spare time, I love checking out urban legends and mysteries and hauntings and that kind of stuff. So if you'd be so kind, subscribe, give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and check your notifications so you're notified when I do upload a new video so that you know when I do. Oh, and by the way, this fuzzy thing, it is a new mic that I'm trying out. So it's not like a black-haired gerbil trying to chew my face off. Without further ado, let's jump into it. So there was an outlaw by the name of McCurdy, and he was embalmed, and he wound up eventually at an amusement park in Long Beach, California, as a prop. One of the crew from the $6 Million Man TV show was moving props around, and one of the arms came off. Coming in at number 5, this is the legend of the all-too-real corpse decoration. The notorious Elmer McCoy. He was an outlaw, and in 1911 he was killed and his body was embalmed. Things were not normal for Elmer. His body traveled all over the United States in various ways. Somehow McCurdy ended up at the New Pike Amusement Park in Long Beach, California. McCurdy was hung in this funhouse and he was used as a prop. Nobody realized that it was a real dead corpse, at least for a long time. So in 1976, on the set of the $6 Million Man, they filmed at that funhouse, and one of the crew members moved McCurdy, who they thought was a prop, and realized that it was a real body when his arm broke off. And they kind of went, well, what is this? And discovered that it was, in fact, a real body. Well, McCurdy was laid to rest properly about a year later. That is the story of the funhouse mannequin, otherwise known as the all-too-real corpse. So you check into a hotel room with your honey, maybe it's your honeymoon, and something smells funky. You look around, can't find anything, use an air freshener, and you just decide to kind of put up with it. It's a cheap hotel, whatever. And it just seems to get worse. So finally, in the middle of the night, you get up and take a look, and underneath the bed is a corpse. You would not believe how many times that actually happened. Coming in at number 4, the legend of the corpse under the bed. Vacationing couples, newlyweds, there's been several reports where people have gone into a hotel to bed down for the night, only to smell something horrible and wake up the next day to find a corpse under the bed. Now, this has been reported in at least 12 different newspapers, everywhere from Colorado, Florida, Virginia, and also Atlantic City. In 1999, in Atlantic City, a couple checked into a hotel. It was kind of a budget hotel. They smelled something funky. The next day, they woke up, and finally, the husband couldn't take it anymore, picked up the mattress, and between the mattress and the box spring was a decomposing body. But in 2010, there was an even weirder one at a budget lodge in Memphis. Sunny Millbrook left in the morning to take her children to daycare, but she never returned that night to pick them up. When her family finally got worried, they called the police. Millbrook's body was found underneath a bed at this budget lodge, but up above in the tiles, there was fabric softener found to try to mask the odor. At least 3 occupants had stayed in that hotel before the final couple actually discovered the body. Lakeith Moody, Millbrook's boyfriend, was eventually caught, apprehended, and prosecuted for the murder of his girlfriend. Somewhere in the 70s in Virginia, an escaped mental patient took to carving up rabbits and hanging them in the bridge, he escalated and started to carve up teenagers that were parked and making out. And then finally he threw an axe through the window trying to stop somebody, and he was arrested. At least that's the story. Coming in at number 3 is the legend of the Bunny Man. If you were around Virginia in the 1970s, then you probably heard about the Bunny Man Tunnel, or the legend of the Bunny Man. And what the legend is this maniacal, crazed escapee from a mental institution started cutting up rabbits and hanging them up in this bridge. And then he graduated to wearing a bunny suit himself and killing teenagers that were in parked cars. That's the legend. So what's the truth? Well, the truth is a little more mild in this case. So there was a couple and they went parking. And when I mean parking, they were making out, doing whatever. They happened to be on private property. Maybe they knew it, maybe they didn't. But a guy came out and yelled at him. He had a white outfit on. And to punctuate that he really wanted them off his property, he threw an axe through the front windshield. Well, they called the police. Nobody found the guy. And then about 2 weeks later, there was another guy, maybe the same guy, in a white outfit. And he was hacking apart a railing off of a house.
Maniacally.
The security called the police. The police went on a wild goose chase trying to find the guy. They never did. Somehow, the corpses of the bunnies, the man in the white suit, the axe through the window, the ears, all of this came together to become this maniacal killer that was killing teenagers in parked cars in a bunny outfit. But really, it just seems like it was a guy that just really wanted you to get off his lawn.
Get off my lawn.
I think the Bunny Man has also shown up in a couple other places in history. Interesting. Guy travels. He's a traveling, crazy bunny outfit wearing maniacal killer. So a girl and a guy go out parking on a date. The guy's got to take a leak. And he's taking forever. She's listening to the radio. And all of a sudden, it interrupts for an emergency broadcast that there's an escape maniac with a hook hand. The guy never comes back. And finally, when she gets out of the car, his corpse is totally hanging from a tree, ripped to shreds, scraping the roof of the car. This has been an urban legend that is in just about every town in America. It is one of my favorite. So coming in at number 2 is the legend of the hook hand. A couple goes out parking, and somewhere along the line on the radio, it gets interrupted and they hear a news bulletin about an escaped maniac with a hook for a hand. The guy gets out of the car for one reason or another because the car won't start and he needs gas or he has to go to the bathroom, but he never comes back. And then there's various versions of what had happened to the man. Sometimes he's cut up and hung up in a tree and is scraping on the roof of the car. And other times he just never returns, or she runs and finds him mangled somewhere. But what is the truth of the hook hand? I did a video that actually kickstarted my idea of doing legend tripping videos, and that was when I was on the Poison Tour, and I'll make a link to it right now, and I'll also put one in the description. And that was called The Phantom Killer, and that was in Texarkana, Texas, and that is a true story. I am at Spring Lake in Texarkana, Texas. This area is where the first murder did occur, and it was to a couple in a parked car. And the urban legend about the hook hand, which I'm sure you've heard, this is where that urban legend started. So I'm not going to tell you a whole lot about that, but basically a guy had done several murders, and one of them, one of the main ones that kick-started the whole thing, was he murdered a couple that were necking in a car. That story in Texarkana, Texas, spawned a couple of movies. There was a movie about this in 1971, loosely based on the murders. Almost every single town in America has a version of this story, if not the same one. And somebody will take you and say, this is where it happened. This is where it happened. I know it is. And there's a few versions of it. And actually in the movie, the Urban Legend movie, which was a horror movie, they have that exact urban legend in there. It's one of my favorite urban legends because it was one of the first urban legends just literally scared the living daylights out of me. That one was a trip. Oh, and where did the hookhand come from? Probably the same place where the guy that had the white suit got his bunny ears. You stand in front of the mirror of a medicine cabinet and say Candyman 3 times, and suddenly a maniacal killer comes to life and blasts through the medicine cabinet, through the mirror, and kills you. This is the legend of the Candyman, but behind all that, there were actually 3 things that formulated this crazy story. One of them began in Chicago, and this is going to blow your mind. So coming in at number 1 is my very favorite urban legend, and that is the legend of Candyman. In 1992, a movie called Candyman, which is still a potent horror movie, was released. It was a short story that was written by Clive Barker, who is one of the kings of horror, in case you didn't know it. This maniacal killer would come and pull people through the mirror and pull them into his twisted world and torture and kill them.
Candyman. She turned out the lights.
And there was this huge tale behind it. So what is the story of the Candyman? This is my favorite urban legend because it is a many-splendored thing. There was a Dean Arnold Corll. Dean was an American serial killer who killed up to 28 young men and boys between the years 1970 and 1973. Corll was known as the Candyman because his family owned and operated a candy manufacturing company. Corll was aided by 2 accomplices, David Owen Brooks and Elmer Wayne Henley. These crimes became known as the Houston mass murderers because they were committed in Houston, Texas. His victims were lured by either a ride or a party or candy. They would either be restrained by force or deception, raped, and murdered. They were primarily killed with strangulation or shot with a .22. Henley, one of the accomplices, finally killed Corll. Both of the accomplices were sentenced to life. Ronald Clark O'Brien was also known as the Candyman for a completely different reason. This was in 1974, and he filled up a pixie stick with potassium cyanide in order to kill his 8-year-old son and collect a $100,000 life insurance policy. He gave some to his daughter and one of their friends, but they didn't eat the pixie sticks, just the 8-year-old son did. The son died. O'Brien was finally fingered for the murder and was put on death row. He was executed by lethal injection in 1984. O'Brien also lived in Texas. But the next part of this urban legend takes us to Chicago. In 1987, the Chicago Reader published an article about a Ruth McCoy. McCoy lived in a housing project in Chicago and had made a frantic call to 911 that she was being murdered. The police showed up and took a look around and could not find her apartment. And it was 3 days where she decomposed before she was actually found. Now, what does this have to do with Candyman? Well, apparently those housing projects at the time were constructed in such a way that the medicine cabinets were facing each other in these apartment complexes and literally were just separated by a piece of drywall. So you could pull out the medicine cabinet, break a piece of drywall, and climb into the next apartment, which is exactly what this one person did. But all those projects were constructed in such a way that the plumbers could get to the plumbing very easily. But it also made it where if somebody wanted to break in, it wasn't that hard. And that's exactly what happened to Ruth McCoy. Now, why Ruth was killed, I'm really not quite sure. You have to kind of piece all these things together to try to understand where these urban legends came from. When you look at all these stories, it isn't hard to understand how to put the pieces of that puzzle together. But what's interesting is some of these stories really have some very, very scary underpinnings. And that's why I do this. That's why I like checking out urban legends, because you just never know what you're going to uncover. So until next time, be careful of that funhouse. Look underneath the bed. Be careful of your medicine cabinet. And for God's sakes, subscribe. I really hope you guys enjoyed these urban legends. This is something I really enjoy doing. And there's nothing more fun than sitting around a campfire and telling these stories. It's also really fun to like uncover and find out really what's behind them. Maybe even go visit those places, and that's what I do on this channel. So please come back again and check out more of my videos. Take care of each other and keep rock alive.